lots coming towards the end of the year, these kinds of stories, but Nathaniel Hackett has been fired. And we all knew this was going to happen. I mean, he was a dead man walking, but it seemed like the Broncos wanted to keep him around until the end of the season for God knows what reason. But they basically were forced into firing him after that insanely pathetic loss to the Rams, which wasn't just a bad loss to a bad team. It was also a moment where you saw multiple fights break out because people just the Broncos players just essentially had it. They were through with this shit. They were through with everything about this year, and I don't blame them. I mean, don't fight anybody. That's not right. But you could see the frustration, and he'd already lost the locker room by that point. That's how it read to me watching the game. And it's amazing to me that George Paton has survived this debacle after giving Russell Wilson that extension, after seeing how he apparently looked in training camp and choosing to give him the extension ahead of the season before seeing him play. Now they're stuck with him for the foreseeable future. I think if you were to give them some sort of truth serum, they would say we'd rather cut him than keep him on the roster, but they literally cannot, given the dead cap hits that would be so insurmountable. You know, I would, if I were this new ownership group and I had the money that the Walmart people had, he'd be gone in a second. But he's, I guess, going to be involved in the process of helping pick the next head coach, but less involved. It's going to be the new ownership group, the CEO Penner. However, it's bad process to keep a dead man walking GM around and get a new head coach because, I mean, we're seeing it with the Giants when you hire, and I mean, the Vikings too, for example, like they hired their GM and their head coach at the same time. The Giants, head coach, GM, same time. They are able to kind of interview together, share their visions, have a cohesive plan for the way the team is going to be run, and they are tied together. So there's no politicking where you're undercutting somebody to save yourself and vice versa, and or the GM does it to the head coach does it to the GM, and vice versa. Although usually the GM wins because the GM hangs out with the owner a lot more and the coach is with the players. But I digress. The interim head coach for the Broncos is now the guy that they hired to help Hackett with game management. Some of the highlights of this season, the Broncos are 0-3 in overtime. They completely mismanaged the clock in week 1 in that insane way where they burn 30 seconds before trying to kick a over 60-yard field goal for no reason when they could have gone for it, I think on like 4th and 4. Russell Wilson had those horrible turnovers versus the Colts. He had a meltdown against the Rams. And they also, like, they lost in overtime against the Chargers as well. It's just been insane. And I don't know why anyone would want to take this job except if you throw a pile of money at the guy, and if the guy is someone like Jim Harbaugh, who clearly wants to get back into the NFL. And that's got to be the front runner for the person they're going to hire. Because they've been saying that they want a CEO of the football operation, somebody who's going to be a veteran and bring the team together and knows how to win in the NFL. And Jim Harbaugh, despite my many misgivings with him as a human being, has won in the NFL. And he's a veteran as opposed to the Nathaniel Hackett first-time head coach deal that did not work out. So they're going to want to go with someone a bit more seasoned who can be an adult in that locker room. Like, I think that is going to be the way that this organization goes to try to salvage this Russell Wilson situation, because they literally cannot change anything about it because the contract is so favored towards Russell Wilson. They can't get out of it. And time will tell. I mean, what they really need is to play like they did in Seattle. They need the defense to be dominant, and then they need the offense to be simple so Russell Wilson doesn't have to make reads. I mean, that's the situation that we're at with their $250 million quarterback. It's a disaster. I've never seen anything like it in the NFL. And I'm hopeful, as I said earlier in the show, that this kind of contract gives owners pause about extending quarterbacks because of team success. We all thought Russell Wilson was elite. I did, but now we're seeing maybe this was the team that brought him to that situation. The quarterback contracts, I think they need to come down to earth so the rest of the pie is able to be distributed among the other players. And between Deshaun Watson and whatever the hell the Browns did and what the Broncos bungled here with Russell Wilson, perhaps that gives the rest of the league pause before these extensions kind of take up so much cap for the team that there isn't enough for the rest of the guys, because that is, I think, more of a winning formula than certainly what's happening in Denver.